STRIXHAVEN, School of Mages, releases online in just a few days. While I did conduct a usual full set review on my Twitch channel, link to which is available in the description, in this video I will share with you what I predict to be the strongest cards in the set for various constructed formats. First of those cards is going to be Thrilling Discovery, red-white sorcery. You gain 2 life. Then you may discard 2 cards. If you do, draw 3 cards. So we are not here to use this card fairly, but rather abuse the fact that it's essentially a functional reprint of Cathartic Reunion for Modern Dredge. Obviously, the idea here is to discard your dredgers and then pick them up immediately, filling a large portion of your library in one go, just like we do with Cathartic Reunion. And I think that card can be pretty big print because ever since Faithless Looting got banned from Modern Dredge, somewhat struggled. The enablers just weren't the same. Besides Cathartic Reunion itself, the other discard outlets just weren't all that good, and I believe that the difference between extra functional copies of Cathartic in Thrilling Discovery when compared to Merchant of the Veil are going to outweigh the cost of Splashing White. Getting to play a Reunion effect nearly every game on turn 2 should be a pretty decent boost to the deck's power level, and I expect the Dredge Mages to at least try to contour their mana bases a little bit to accommodate Thrilling Discovery. While Splashing White is not necessarily trivial, a mana base with a heavier focus on Gamestone Mines or City of Rats should definitely be able to do it. On top of all of that, Thrilling Discovery also provides the caster with 2 life, which frustratingly, like while being a bonus that is appreciated, doesn't trigger a Silver Shroud Cool, so for that we're still gonna need to look towards Creeping Cheel. Next card is Decisive Denial. Green-blue, instant. Choose one. Target creature you control fights target creature you don't control, or counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays free. This one is definitely more of a standard hit. Split card counter spell into removal spell is definitely a very strong effect if Drown the Log does anything. Now, Decisive Denial doesn't seem to be quite on the same level, but it requires much less enabling. I know that calling a fight spell a removal spell is a little bit generous, but with standard green decks mostly all being interested in playing some combination of Lovestruck Beast or Kazandu Mammoth or just both already, it's not too far-fetched, and having the flexibility of being able to interact with both creatures and non-creatures seem very valuable in game ones. I would definitely try this one in an adventure shell alongside Lovestruck Beast and Brazen Borrower. Next comes Rip Apart, red-white sorcery. Choose one. Rip Apart deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker, or destroy target artifact or enchantment. Once again, the modal removal spells that we are getting keep getting more and more modal. With Rip Apart, we can actually deal with a small creature, a planeswalker that uses minus ability, an artifact, or an enchantment. That's a pretty wide range of targets you can hit. While being sorcery speed is a pretty huge downside on a removal, obviously, I think the flexibility will warrant its inclusion in mostly standard decks, maybe extending to some extent to older formats, if being Rainbow for Nyth Method, for example, is relevant. So yeah, it's standard for a cheap creature removal spell to be able to answer cards like the Great Henge can be quite valuable. But as with every removal spell, whether we actually see a ton of it or if it's gonna stay on the sidelines of the metagame, is dependent on how the metagame will exactly shake out. But baseline, I find the card to be quite powerful. Vanishing Verse, white-black instant, exile target monocolored permanent. And here, yet another golden removal spell on the list, this time even an instant one. Vanishing Verse might have some room to be played in Modern even, I would think. Letting you target any card type is quite powerful, and with Heliod Company being one of the better decks in Modern as of right now, being able to exile a god is a desirable quality in your removal spell. Obviously, there is still a lot of targets that Vanishing Verse omits, most notably Lurus of the Dream Den, the entirety of both Tron decks, and the entirety of the Nyth Method deck, but I expected to occasionally see some sideboard play in Modern. As for Standard, despite many multicolored decks being played, not that many multicolored cards were actually played before STRIXHAVEN got released. So there is a chance that Vanishing Verse, with its relative flexibility, is gonna be a pretty decent player in the upcoming format. Expressive Iteration, blue-red, sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, one of them on the bottom of your library, and exile one of them. You may play the exiled card this turn. Now this one is interesting. It takes a little bit of work, but you can get a draw 2 effect out of this 2 mana card pretty easily. As long as you play it in a deck constituting mostly of cheap and proactive cards, it should be an attainable goal. So pairing it with counter spells or creature removal is not necessarily going to be advisable, but cantrips, burn spells, cheap creatures, maybe discard spells, all of that should work quite well. I can see this card being played in a prowess type shell in modern, or maybe a Death Shadow disruption heavy deck with Thoughtseizes, with Shadows and Thoughtseizes being very cheap cards. Or maybe in standard decks, even if they consist of slightly more expensive cards and a little bit more high up the curve, as you can always find and exile a land to play it for your turn, if you haven't done that already. One downside of Expressive Iteration is that while it is a 2 mana card, technically, it is not necessarily a good turn 2 play, making your curve a little bit vague, so you have to account for that. From the cards I mentioned in this video so far, Expressive Iteration is the one I'm least sure about, but the ceiling is high enough that I have high hopes. Clever Lumimancer. 1 white mana, creature, human wizard, magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Clever Lumimancer gets +2/+2 until end of turn. 0/1. Now, we all know how strong Monastery Swiftspear and Soulscar Mage are at enabling aggressive creature decks in Modern. Clever Lumimancer is yet another drop that those strategies could use. This time, instead of just prowess, basically with super prowess. 1 spell, which is on par with a Soulscar Mage that also got triggered once. With 2, it's already bigger, and anything more than that is just gravy. That's not all. The way the new Magecraft keyword ability is worded, it triggers every time a spell is cast or copied. You can do a lot with just Manamorphoses and Lava Darts and Lightning Bolts and similar, but Lumimancer can get really big once you add some cheesy storm cards into your deck like Ground Rift or Flusterstorm. This approach might be overall too all-in, but I will be definitely trying to use Clever Lumimancer in both more traditional prowess decks, playing red and white, and in some more combo-y, aggressive all-in Niv-Magus elemental decks, where I would use Clever Lumimancer as a redundancy for the elemental. This Storm card approach might be overall a little bit too all-in, but I will definitely be trying to use Clever Lumimancer both in more traditional prowess, red-based prowess decks, and I'll also be trying to use it as a redundancy piece for Niv-Magus elemental aggro, combo, cheesy decks. As strong as the trigger is, there are downsides to Lumimancer. It is weak to specifically opposing Lava Darts or Red and 6 activations, being just a creature of 1 toughness. That is never super great in Modern nowadays. It doesn't trigger off of Mishra's Bauble, which is oftentimes used as a prowess enabler. It does require white mana in your deck that is going to predominantly be typically red, unless you can play Lumimancer in some other shells that I'm not thinking of right now. And also being baseline 0 power pairs up especially poorly with Light Up the Stage, which is a card that prowess decks commonly want to play. But overall, I'm a believer in the card. It has a really high ceiling, and this is my pick for the strongest print of the set. Now, if you think, those are the best cards in the entire set, I am with you here. STRIXHAVEN feels definitely like Standard is being still depowered after the year of insane cards printed between War of the Spark and Ikoria. Unfortunately, that means that the new additions from the set in the Standard format are going to be likely overshadowed by Throne of Eldraine, Adventure Package, etc. So I expect the impact on the Standard metagame to be somewhat minor. That being said, there is another thing that STRIXHAVEN brings to us. It's the Mystical Archives. New promotional printings of some of the iconic old instants and sorceries. And those Mystical Archives, while not legal in Standard, are going to be mostly made legal in the Historic format. I won't talk about them in detail in this video, but the most powerful and impactful ones that deserve a special mention are Brainstorm Faithless Looting, Inquisition of Kozilek, Memory Lapse, and Time Warp. Alright, so everything being said, thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed the content, leave a like, leave a comment, or subscribe to my channel for more of it. If you think I got something wrong, if you think some of the cards I picked are terrible, or if you think I missed some obvious great ones, let me know. And see you next time.